Good evening. On behalf of the League of Women Voters and in partnership with Action 22, we welcome you to our primary candidate forum for Colorado's 3rd Congressional District. My name is Karen Sheik. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Montezuma County and I'm the current president of the board of the League of Women Voters of Colorado. With me tonight is Sara Blackhurst, CEO of Action 22, who will be our moderator. We are so pleased to be able to offer live Spanish translation for this evening's forum. Martin Better is our translator this evening. He has translated for the League of Women Voters on a number of occasions, as well as various nonprofit organizations, conferences, and public events. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Martin so that he can begin translation with instructions in Spanish on how to access the Spanish translation. Martin.
Hello, everybody. Thanks so much, Karen, for introducing me. I'm pleased to be here as the interpreter for this event. Thank you so much, League of Women Voters, for providing live interpretation in Spanish for this event and helping efforts of language access and justice. I will now give instructions for how to access the interpretation in Spanish. Si quieren oír esta presentación, este foro en español, por favor, hagan clic en el icono del globo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Cuando hagan clic en ese globito, van a ver la opción de elegir el idioma en inglés y en español. Por favor, sintonícense al canal en español. Gracias. I'm ready to go, Karen. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. The 3rd Congressional District is the largest geographical district in Colorado, encompassing over 49,000 square miles. The district extends along the western border of Colorado from Moffett County in the northwest to Montezuma County in the southwest, and along the southern border to Los Animas, Otero, and Pueblo counties in the east. It includes 27 counties, including a portion of Eagle County, along with 2 Native American tribes. The Ute Mountain Ute tribe, which is headquartered in Toyoak, which is in southwest Colorado, and the Southern Ute tribe headquartered on the Southern Ute Reservation near Ignacio. The population of our district is just under 722,000 based on the most recent redistricting maps. Leagues across the district have come together to sponsor this forum tonight, including Gunnison Valley, La Plata, Mesa, Montezuma, Pueblo, San Luis Valley, and Uncompahgre Valley chapters. Our co-sponsor tonight is Action 22, based in Pueblo. The League of Women Voters is a nonprofit organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in their government. It works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and it influences public policy through action and advocacy. The League does not support or oppose candidates or political parties. Participating in and hosting candidate and ballot issue forums is just one of the many activities that the League engages in to accomplish our mission to empower voters, defend democracy. We welcome those joining us by Zoom and via our Facebook live feed tonight. This forum is being recorded and it will be available on demand for viewing via the League of Women Voters of Colorado website and Facebook page, along with Vote 411, which is the League's award-winning voter information website. If you are joining us on Zoom, you can also enable the live transcript closed captioning feature, which can be found in a button at the bottom of your screen. We are so pleased to have all of the primary candidates with us this evening. Each of the candidates will have an opportunity to respond to the same questions, all of which have been submitted by voters in the 3rd Congressional District. Tonight's format is a town hall forum, not a debate. Questions have been selected by a nonpartisan committee made up of League members from several chapters and are based on citizen interest and relevance to the office being sought. We have selected questions to represent a cross-section of the communities that comprise this congressional district. Over 100 questions were submitted, and though we will obviously not have time to ask all of them tonight, nor will we be taking questions this evening, questions that were not asked this evening will be forwarded to all candidates. If you have additional questions of candidates, we encourage you to contact them directly. We thank all of those who submitted questions because asking questions of elected officials and candidates seeking public office is a sign of a healthy democracy. It's now my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Ms. Sara Blackhurst. Ms. Blackhurst is the CEO for Action 22 Inc., based in Pueblo. Sara holds a bachelor's degree in business from Adams State University in Alamosa, and she has over 10 years of nonprofit leadership and development experience. Action 22 is a nonpartisan, membership-driven organization which serves as a voice and leader for action on public policy for 22 southern Colorado counties. Their membership includes business leaders, elected officials, business organizations, counties, municipalities, and nonprofits. Sara will review the rules of this evening's forum, all of which have been shared with the candidates beforehand. So let's get started. Sara, welcome.
Thank you, Karen, and good evening and welcome to this candidate forum. My name is Sara Blackhurst, and I'm here with you tonight from Pueblo, where I live and work as the CEO of Action 22 Inc. We are joined by the primary candidates for the job of representing Colorado's 3rd Congressional District in the House of Representatives. Welcome to you all. The U.S. Constitution empowers the House of Representatives to make legislation that will be the law of the land, control the country's purse strings, and serve as a check on the branches of government. The candidates we will hear from tonight are vying for the job to exercise these constitutional powers while representing you, the people of our vast and diverse district. A unique aspect of forums sponsored by the League of Women Voters is that members of the public get to ask questions of the candidates about issues that interest them and get to hear the answers directly from the candidates without edit or filter, making it more like a town hall meeting than a debate. As our League of Women Voters host indicated, we had more than 100 questions submitted from which we are trying to ask the candidates. A few questions were provided to the candidates in advance of this particular forum. We will ask those as well as others we have selected that were submitted by residents of CD3. The League of Women Voters and the candidates have agreed on the following guidelines, and I will briefly go over them now. Questions will be read by the candidates or to the candidates by me, the moderator. Questions will be asked of all candidates and will not be addressed to any one specific candidate. Questions that were personal in nature, that attacked a candidate, or that were not relevant to the office for which the candidate is running were not included. The forum will proceed as follows. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 1 minute to answer each question, and will have 2 minutes for a closing statement at the end. There will be a timekeeper to keep candidates aware of the time remaining. Candidates, please keep an eye on the timer screen to keep track of your time. If you do exceed your time limit, I will ask you to conclude your sentence. The order in which the candidates will give their opening statements was determined by a random drawing just before we began. That order will be reversed for closing statements. There are 5 candidates running in the primary election, 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans. The Democrat and Republican winner of the primary will face off in the general election on November 8th. There will be other candidates, of course, in the general election ballot who are running for this position. These candidates are from other parties or unaffiliated. Their candidacy did not require a primary election and therefore that were not in the primary ballot. The candidates are, on the Democrat side, Adam Frisch, Sol Sandoval, and Alex Walker. On the Republican side, Lauren Boebert and Don Koram. During this forum, and with full respect for all candidates, we will be referring to the candidates by their first names. We will begin opening statements based on the drawing, and here is the order. First, we will hear from Alex Walker, then Lauren Boebert, Adam Frisch, Don Koram, and finally Sol Sandoval. A quick reminder to candidates, your answers are being translated live into Spanish, so please speak at a pace that facilitates translation. So we're going to begin with opening statements. We'll begin with Alex. Alex, you have 2 minutes. Please begin.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters. I'm Alex Walker, a young, gay, moderate mechanical engineer running for office, not because I like politics, but because I am afraid for our country. A dangerous and vocal minority of insurrectionists want to take over the country, and one of the people who helped plan the largest coup in modern history is on this call. And we must stand up. Are you angry about the chaos in Washington? Good. This must be the default state of the electorate in America. We must stand up and think independently and speak unapologetically and fight for what is right by pushing back on both parties. I am running for a Colorado for the future with clean jobs, higher paychecks, accessible healthcare, and affordable housing, but I'm also fighting for survival. The rights to choose, marry, and survive preschool are on the ballot. Winning will require more than great policy. It will require a strategy that boldly proclaims, you cannot do this and we will fight back. Maybe it won't be pretty, but it is vital. My economic expertise from 10 years working as an engineer and small business owner, my understanding of the media, and my ability to awaken a new generation of young voters nationally will put us in a position not only to give this district a respectable representative in 2022, but to encourage thousands of new public servants to participate in 2024. Ms. Boebert, I am so happy you were here tonight. Thank you for being here. You are a huge part of the problem. We must start turning the tides towards progress. Thank you.
Lauren, you get to go next.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the League of Women Voters, to the San Luis Valley and the rest of Colorado's 3rd District. Our country is paying the price for Biden and Pelosi's failed policies. We're paying the price at the pump. We're paying the price with runaway inflation. We're paying the price with our children's failed schools, violent crime that goes unpunished, billions of military equipment left on the battlefield, 13 brave heroes left to die on Biden's botched exit from Afghanistan, sky-high gas prices, baby formula shortages, wildfires causing horrible air quality, the fentanyl crisis. I think that's all worth speaking up for. I ran as a conservative. I won as a conservative. I vote as a conservative, and I'll win again because I am the only conservative in this race. I have an A rating from 2 gun rights organizations. I have a 100% voting scorecard on the Constitution, border security, the economy, and our personal liberties. I'm doing what I said I would do in Congress. I'm delivering results for our district while sticking up for freedom, sticking up for our God-given rights, putting America first, and calling the left out on all of the crap. I refuse to play Nancy Pelosi's con game of slapping a great name on a bad piece of legislation while career politicians give her everything that she wants in the dead of night. If we're going to get our country back on track, we need more fearless conservatives in Congress, not fewer. I've proven I have the guts to stand up and will say enough is enough. We have to stop the reckless spending, balance the budget, support law enforcement, shut down the southern border, and stop the invasion of millions of illegal immigrants, sex traffickers, and drug cartels. I didn't go to DC to join the good old boys club or make friends with the squad. I went here to get our country back on track. The Gazette recently said that I was a champion of small businesses, the middle class, and the working class. I'll take that as a compliment all day long. I appreciate each and every one of you for having me here today, and I look forward to this evening.
Thank you, Lauren. Adam, you're up next.
Thank you, Sarah. Good evening to everybody. Thank you to Action 22, Karen, and the League of Women Voters for everything that you all do. Super important, especially in these trying times, to protect democracy and the right to vote. I'm running as a father and a husband and someone who grew up in rural Montana, the father of 2 children, a successful businessman, and someone who spent some time working on my local city council, focusing on issues like affordable housing and protection of water rights. I got into this race because I think that Congresswoman Boebert is very weak and she's going to lose. People are sick and tired of her antics of ginning up the entertainment industry, along with some of her other extremists in office. While she received only 51% of the vote compared to some of those other extremists that received somewhere in the 65 and 75%, she did not win her home county. Those that know her don't care for her, and a lot more people know her now than did before. The conservative media in her own district has turned against her. And I think it's time to bring some dignity back to Colorado's 3rd district. I'm going to be focusing on bringing inflation down instead of my Twitter account, working on better schools in our district and focus on rural water and making sure that the rest of the district is protected with water rights and making sure that we have a clean energy transformation happening while still respecting those that are producing energy that's still needed around our country. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Dawn, you're next. I'm sorry, Dawn, can you unmute and start again?
Oh, thank you very much. My wife's been trying to mute me for years. Thank you for being here. The league, Karen, everybody, the candidates for being here. I'm Don Koram and I'm running for the 3rd Congressional District. When I decided to run, I started looking at the extremism that's going on in this country, extreme left, extreme right, and the 80% in the middle were being ignored. Loud rhetoric and promoting hate and division is not going to solve the problems that we face here in the United States today, and especially the 3rd Congressional District. I'm going to bring my experience in the General Assembly, my experience in ranching, natural resources, water, construction. I'm the guy that's been out there with his sleeves rolled up, working hard each and every day for decades. And I've been talking to people that are sick and tired of the rhetoric and the gridlock that's happening in Washington, D.C. I've been known as a negotiator, facilitator. I've been a legislator. I'm not an instigator. And I've tried to find the solution. You can spend time with those that disagree with you and learn a great deal. And we actually had the opportunity to do that today in Crested Butte, and it was very, very good. So I'm going to be the candidate that will be available to all, not just the members of my party. The new majority is the unaffiliated, because frankly, they are sick and tired of the rhetoric of the extreme left, the extreme right, and they want to see somebody that can go there and do the job. I have that experience. My resume is there. I can do the job. I don't have to retrain, retool. I can just go to work. And that's what I will do on day one of changing the culture of Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Sol, will you unmute and wrap up the opening statements for us?
Gracias, Sarah. I'm Sol Sandoval, the daughter of courageous naturalized citizens, lifelong union members who came to this country in pursuit of the American dream, a dream that is fading. For the past 20 years living in Pueblo, I have lived the experience that most people in our district live, living paycheck to paycheck, wondering if I'll be able to keep a roof over my head while I'm trying to afford groceries, going to urgent care because I cannot afford to go to the ER, drowning with you all in student debt, overwhelmed with childcare expenses. It is time that we elect someone who will look out for the residents of CD3. As a lifelong Democrat, I share your values. I'm ready to step up and be the leader that we so desperately need. While our forests are burning, our waters are drying up, our roads and bridges are in need of repair, and help is nowhere to be found. I have proven to you all that I've got the grit. I know how to listen. I know how to raise money. I'm organized, and I know how to win. With dozens of endorsements that include Diane Mitch Bush, Working Families Party, Sal Pace, reproductive rights organizations, Color, and Cobalt. Voces Unidas Action Fund, which turns out Latino voters, the mayors from San Luis, La Junta, the support of all the Democrats on City Council in Pueblo, Gilbert and Diana Ortiz, Marguerite and Arnold Salazar, Colorado State Senators, Nick Henriksen, Julie Gonzalez, Jesse Danielson. I got on the ballot with almost 50% support from the Democratic Assembly. I have the network, the experience, and the ganas to turn CD3 blue again. My name is Sol Sandoval, and I'm ready to represent you in Congress. Please join my effort to move Colorado forward and vote for me on June 28th. Together, we will. Gracias.
Thank you all. We're going to move on to the question portion of the forum. Just for our listeners, the first 4 questions were sent ahead to all the candidates so they know what these questions are. What would you say to the 200,000, 42% of voters in CD3 who are registered as unaffiliated to convince them to vote for you in the primary? Lauren, we begin with you.
Thank you. I'd say the same thing to every voter. Liberal policies are failing this country. Every one of my opponents supports liberal policies. I don't. A vote for me is a vote for the Constitution, for personal freedom, lower inflation, lower gas prices, law enforcement, safer schools, and safer communities. A vote for anyone else in this race is a vote for Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and the liberal policies that are ruining our country. For example, the United States should lead in energy production because we produce it cleaner and better than anyone in the world, but the left is shutting down our energy industry. I want to stop illegal immigration, sex and drug trafficking at the border, but the left is intentionally flooding the country with illegal immigrants. Parents, they should be in charge of their kids' school, not liberal school boards. And the government seems to think that these moms and dads who show up to say something are domestic terrorists. And I also think that small businesses are every bit as essential as Home Depot and Walmart.
Thank you, Lauren. Adam, you're next.
Thank you, Sarah. The district is 43% unaffiliated, 25% Democrat, and 31% Republican. The Democrats cannot do it by themselves. I'm running and have been a moderate, pragmatic Democrat for a long time. I'm focused on consensus building and getting things done. There's no doubt that there are extremists on both sides, as Senator Koram talked about, and I'm focused on the 80% of the people that aren't on Twitter all day long, whether they're elected officials or citizens trying to pay their bills. I think it's really, really important that the noise is turned down and that we find a representative who has a lot of passion and a lot of guts, but also kindness and heart to make sure that they focus on the district's needs that matter. Rural water protection, bringing down inflation, making sure that we have safe and healthy and balanced schools across the entire district, not those in the fanciest resort communities or the fanciest suburbs of Denver. That's what we need to focus on. I am a consensus builder. I'm very happy to have the support of the Durango Herald, as well as some former Democratic primary candidates that were running as well.
Thank you, Adam. Dawn? Dawn, will you please unmute and start again?
Okay, thank you. That's an easy question to answer. I've done this in 5 elections. I've been able to build a coalition, a consensus. In Senate District 8, I represent 8 counties. 4 are red, 4 are blue, and you can see that it's. I've had the support throughout the district. I'm very honored to be recognized today as by the Durango Herald as endorsed in this race because of what I've been able to do, to reach across the aisle, to work things, build coalitions, create compromises, and do what the district needs. Water is the lifeblood of Colorado. I've been on the Ag and Natural Resources Committee for 12 years. I've been a lifetime on the end of the irrigation channel. I know which end does the work, and I am one of the people. I'm not out trying to be famous.
Thank you, Dawn. Sol, you're next.
I am not a lifelong politician. I've worked across the aisle for 20 years here in Pueblo as a social worker for Pueblo County, for nonprofits like Catholic Charities. I've worked with pastors and faith leaders with Together Colorado, and I'm currently working as a health advocate for the Colorado Trust. I know how to solve problems. People are ready for a representative who truly cares about them instead of party leaders or big donors. I'm proud to have over 20 endorsements, including Pueblo State Senator Nick Hinrichsen, who said, Sol was able to get things done with a disciplined focus. As a candidate, I have already started developing relationships with Republicans like State Senator Cleve Simpson to work across party lines on issues that matter to us all, like water. I've built a coalition of people from all over the district who want solutions to the problems that everyday people face every single day. I've been training for 20 years here in the home of the heroes to serve you in Congress.
Thank you, Sol. And finally, Alex.
Thank you. I would tell those 200,000 unaffiliated voters that I too am politically homeless. I see two broken parties and an opportunity to bring common sense back to Washington. I will push back on what is broken in both parties, proudly, defiantly, and with data, because party politics are broken. Contrary to what Lauren Boebert said, I don't support liberal policies. I don't support conservative policies because I have values. I support small businesses, free markets, healthcare freedom, healthcare access, mental health care. These aren't party issues. They are values, and they are rooted in common sense, not blind fealty to Joe Biden or Donald Trump.
Excuse me, Saul, could I ask you to blur your background? I apologize. I did not explain to all the candidates, so you cannot have any campaign materials in view. So if you'll simply click on your video icon at the bottom of your screen.
I'll remove it. It's actually not yeah, I'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you so much. Sarah.
Thank you, Karen. Candidates, what measure do you support to improve and secure elections and voting in our country? Adam, we begin with you.
Well, first I have to say that I believe Colorado has the safest and most secure voting policies and practices in the country. I fully support the current Secretary of State and the work that she's doing. 100% mail-in ballot. We have the second highest voter participation in the country. It's somewhere in the 80 percentile. I'm a huge supporter of the ability for unaffiliated voters to join and have a chance to vote in either the Republican or the Democratic primary. So thank you all who are out there voting. As people have talked about, and they know, I was unaffiliated until the end of last year. I always voted Democratic on the national and state ticket. But I think the unaffiliated movement is an important one for a lot of reasons. I completely support the work that's been done to make sure that the shenanigans that happened out in Mesa County by the current secretary, the county clerk, are pursued. And I'm very supportive of what's been done in Colorado. And like some other issues I'll be talking about later tonight, Colorado sets a great example for the country to have safe and secure elections.
Please finish your saying. Thank you. Don, we hear from you next.
Unmuted. Thank you very much. Colorado is basically the gold standard for free and fair elections. You know, Wayne Williams was recognized as the best Secretary of State in the nation. This is a program that's been put together, and I've talked to county clerks around the district that I have full faith in. My own county clerk and recorder used a backup check their numbers with clear ballot against the Dominion, and basically they were almost identical. So I think Colorado could probably put on a seminar for the rest of the nation for fair and free elections. With that said, I think there are cases where there has been some fraud. I think that's been going on forever. But in general, I think we have the fairest elections in the world, and just keep making it better. Follow the Colorado model.
Thank you, Don. Sol, you're up next.
You know, in Colorado, we are so fortunate to have an efficient mail-in ballot system that is not only secure, but it's also regularly audited. Our entire nation needs that. I would have voted in support of HR 1, which passed the House in 2021. It would have put so many of the checks and balances that we have here in Colorado into federal law. And this would have actually included our mail-in ballot process, our Dropbox system, and our gold standard for election security, preventing harassment of voters. And it would have enforced campaign finance law and ethics rules. In Congress, I look forward to working with our Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, to protect our democracy, to secure our elections, and to hold elected officials accountable. This will be a top priority for me.
Thank you, Sol. Alex, you're up.
Great. Okay, this isn't 1812. I don't know why we're voting next to smelly public school bathrooms and stabbing index cards with blunt toothpicks. Of course, people have questions about how our elections are run. I don't believe the big lie, but I also don't think elections are run well. And pointing to how well Colorado has implemented a 250-year-old system doesn't change the fact that we need to evolve it. We can build safe, convenient, open source elections infrastructure that voters in both parties can engage with and believe in. We can eliminate so much of the bureaucracy that mires our elections down. And second, we must regulate big tech out of elections. Misinformation, which I acknowledge comes from both sides, is a big problem, and tech is the proliferator of it.
Thank you, Alex. Lauren, you finish this question.
Thank you. I believe that we deserve a system in which it's easy to vote and very hard to cheat. America needs strong election security measures led by states, not an unconstitutional and partisan federal takeover of our elections as proposed by Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats in much more ways than just HR 1. States should implement voter ID laws, which the vast majority of Americans support. We also need to make sure that there are signature verification checks. Free and fair elections need observers at those places, and the right to vote in person and verification of citizenship. States also need to ensure accurate voter registration rolls and restrict the private funding of election officials and government agencies. I'd like to see more transparency where results can be verified and audited by anyone concerned about fraud. I also think that we need to follow the Constitution, which requires state legislatures to make or change their respective election laws. I joined 100 and I'll stop. Yes.
Candidates, what is your position on Medicare negotiating drug prices with pharmaceutical companies? Dawn, we're going to start with you on this one.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate the question is because it's something that we've been working on for a while through an organization that of medical doctors that I'm working with. I think we need to look at it. But on the second hand, I want to be very careful that we do not take this situation and where the pharmaceutical takes a big hammer to someone else in order to take care of the Medicare. Free and or medication should be available to all. And I've actually run legislation to import these name brand drugs from Europe and Canada, and waiting on Congress to give Colorado the go ahead to do it. But Colorado is leading the nation in drug reducing the price of drugs.
Thank you, Dawn. Sol?
Sir, I strongly support negotiating drug prices. This should be a nonpartisan issue. The VA has done this for years. Their prescription drug prices are less than a third of Medicare's. High drug prices lead to people getting sicker and even dying because they can't afford their medications. While working at social services, people frequently shared that they simply wouldn't fill their prescriptions or cut pills in half. Negotiating drug prices would lower the cost for almost 64 million Americans. It would save Medicare over $450 billion over the next 10 years, actually lowering the deficit. Negotiating prescription prices would lower prices for everyone, regardless of your economic situation, protect consumers from price gouging from big pharma, help small businesses who are struggling to provide coverage for their employees. And it's a crisis in CD3, if you ask me, and I would love to solve it.
Thank you, Sol. Alex, you're next.
Thank you. Yeah, this isn't a partisan issue. Republicans and Democrats all get sick. Medicare should be able to negotiate directly with big pharma. And by prohibiting Medicare from a seat at that table, pharma can set whatever drug prices they want without any sorts of caps. Daily medications like insulin are priced for market value without taking into account the needs of literally anyone who will be taking those medications. If the HHS secretary had full negotiation power today, they would be empowered to secure lower prices for expensive drugs used by millions of Medicare beneficiaries, setting us up for drug reform that would rein in corporate greed and set the stage for more accountability, which 80% of voters on both sides of the aisle want to see.
Thank you, Alex. Lauren, you're next.
Thank you. I think that there are better solutions. My concern with what I've seen Democrats proposing on drug prices and Medicare will end up being a government price control scheme that will reduce the number of life-saving drugs that really come to the market. I support increasing competition and price transparency. I think that's very important. And what President Trump did to take smart steps to allow low-cost generic drugs to be substituted onto plans at any time, increasing competition among plans by removing the Part D meaningful different requirement. His 340B program reforms are saving hundreds of millions of dollars. And I support allowing important prescription drugs from Canada even. One other point, there was a committee who said injecting price competition with Medicare Part B instead of the current cost plus pricing approach. I'm out of time, but anyway, it would save at least $122 billion.
Thank you, Lauren. Adam, you're next.
Drug prices are one of many items that are spiraling out of control. Inflation is killing everybody, families, elderly, seniors especially. We need to get a handle on it for sure. And I would rather spend my time negotiating on that instead of focusing on how many cable television appearances I can make in a week or in a day. I support negotiating hard, and negotiating tough. I do not support capping, putting an artificial cap on prices because it will curtail research being done by the pharmaceutical drugs industries that we're going to need. But we need a lot more transparency and the ability to provide generic drugs working through the system and making sure the drugs are not cheaper in other countries when they're manufactured here.
Thank you. The last question in the previously submitted questions to our candidates is, what is your position on firearm regulation? Sol, we begin with you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm a responsible gun owner who supports the Second Amendment, and I've held concealed carry permits many moons before running for Congress because I believe I have the right to protect myself and my family. Growing up, my father hunted regularly. He still does. But with any right comes responsibility. And let's face it, enough is enough. We need background checks for all purchases, including gun shows, including internet purchases. It's the law in Colorado, and it should be the law nationwide. You can't buy a beer or a handgun until you're 21, but you can purchase a semi-automatic weapon at 18. Let's focus on common sense solutions. Let's research gun violence. Again, red flag laws work. They save lives. 19 states, including Colorado, have them. Let's expand them at the federal level. Let's protect people from harming themselves, from harming others, while we're still exercising our rights. We can go back and forth, but getting some real work done is going to require more people like me in Congress.
Thank you, Sol. Alex?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm tired of partisan rambling on this issue. Responsible firearm ownership is not a pipe dream. I staunchly support the Second Amendment, and I would also act swiftly to close loopholes which are making our country unsafe. Those include the Charleston loophole, but it also means banning the sale to civilians of military assault weapons, which don't belong in civilian hands. And it means banning weapons on school grounds. It is not true that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. If that were true, America would be the safest place on earth. And instead, our gun homicide rate is 25 times higher than that of other developed nations. Now, 90% of American voters support common sense gun reform, like closing the gun show loophole and banning assault weapons. We need to represent them and not our own extremist interests.
Thank you, Alex. Lauren?
I believe in the Constitution, which clearly states the Second Amendment is the right of the people to keep and bear arms and shall not be infringed. Strangely enough, I also agree with a much younger Joe Biden, who said in 1985, quote, "I have never believed that additional gun control or federal registration of guns would reduce crime." Joe went on to say back then that he was, quote, "convinced that a criminal who wants a firearm can get one through illegal, non-traceable, unregistered sources with or without gun control." He was right back then. The reality is that gun-free zones have proven to be deadly. I think we should start by securing our schools. We can fund that effort with some of the unspent billions of dollars that Congress sent to the schools during the pandemic. What we shouldn't do is accept Democrats jamming radical left-wing legislation through Congress that is emotion-driven at the expense of Americans' people's liberties and freedoms. It won't end the school shootings, but it will certainly disarm law-abiding citizens.
Thank you, Lauren. Adam?
Sarah, thanks for the question. As a part-time substitute teacher who spent his time in preschool during COVID, it's obviously heartbreaking what happened. Again, I mentioned Colorado needs to be a leader. I've spent thousands of miles literally driving across this country, and I'm talking to a lot of gun owners. I have yet to find a single gun owner in Colorado who's not that does not feel that their gun rights are protected in Colorado. Again, I've yet to meet anyone who doesn't think they have the right amount of freedom to be a Second Amendment law-abiding citizen and gun owner. Then I look at where Colorado is when I look at gun safety organizations. In Colorado, this state is ranked number 10 out of 50 by one of the most well-respected gun safety organizations in the country. And so there are people that are able to have an incredible amount of Second Amendment protection and Second Amendment freedom under Colorado's gun laws. Red flag, background checks, domestic abuse protection, have to be 21 to purchase handguns, and a variety of other organizations.
Adam, please finish your sentence.
Okay, I'll stop now. Thank you.
Thank you. Don, will you finish us up on this question?
Thank you very much. And as a supporter of the Second Amendment, I'm going to tell you that a gun, like any other source of power, can be used for good. It can be used for evil. It is neither in itself. It is solely dependent on who possesses it. I truly believe that we need to have the conversations. But what we talk about, and no one's mentioned this, is we've got to talk about mental health issues that seem to be surfacing on a lot of these issues. And the Republicans nor the Democrats, neither side have taken into that. So a conversation on regulation and actually enforcing the regulations that we have now is a huge start. But we need to harden the target on our schools, but we need to do it in a civil manner where we have a conversation and come to a conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Now we begin the questions that you don't know anything about ahead of time, candidates. And this question we begin with, it's going to be very difficult for you to answer this in 1 minute. What is your position on Roe v. Wade and a woman's right to choose, the morning after pill, contraceptives, a woman's right to privacy? Alex, we begin with you.
Thank you. A woman's right to choose is her right, it's her body. And the GOP hypocrisy on this issue is insane. For a party that apparently stands for freedom, they sure seem intent on taking yours away. So let's talk about policy. HB 22-1279 right here in Colorado sets the gold standard for how to codify a woman's access to reproductive health. We must use that as a blueprint in Congress. We need to increase access to at-home treatments, which cover 87% of abortions within the first 12 weeks safely and effectively and anonymously. And finally, we need to get young people into office. 52% of older folks are pro-life, but 80% of young folks and young voters are pro-choice. That is the next generation of America we have to be fighting for, and we need somebody who can reach them. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Lauren?
Since Roe v. Wade, Americans' abortion laws have been on par with China and South Korea. That's not really the company that we want to keep. But I'm proud to be an American during this time where, once again, we are working to protect the most vulnerable among us and striving to be a more perfect union. I'm pro-life, and my voting record reflects that. I received a 100% score from the National Right to Life and Susan B. Anthony, and I've also received a 0% score from Planned Parenthood, probably because I said that they can go fund themselves. But in contrast, the abortion activists on the left oppose safeguards for late-term abortions, even though 80% of Americans are in favor of those protections. I've co-sponsored the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act, and will fight to keep Hyde protections so that your tax dollars are never used to fund abortions. But I'm so proud of where we are right now and eagerly awaiting the decision to come from the Supreme Court, and truly hope that the death threats and the rioting outside of the Supreme Court justices stops.
Thank you. Adam, you're next.
Speaking of death threats, my father got them when I was growing up. He spent 50 years as an OBGYN. I have 3 younger sisters, and the youngest one is an OBGYN. So as much as an issue can be close to home for male, this is it for me. Safe, legal, rare is what we need to focus on, and supporting and making sure that women have the freedom to make their own decisions between them and their healthcare provider. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Dawn, you're up next.
Well, it's ironic that the conversation of abortion is always among those who have been born. The Constitution is abortion is legally constitutionally. That may change. If it does, I think it's going to go back to states' rights with 10th Amendment. I personally am opposed to abortion, and that is why a few years ago I introduced the long-acting reversible contraceptives that cut teen pregnancy rate by 52% and the abortion by 64%. And if you are truly interested in stopping abortions, let's stop the pregnancy, the unwanted pregnancy. It can happen. It will save millions and millions of dollars and a better quality of life for all of those.
Thank you, Dawn. Sol, will you finish up this question?
I'm probably the only one on here who has actually gone to Planned Parenthood for healthcare and also birth control. So medical decisions should always remain between a woman and her physician, no one else. I support the bill in Congress that would have put Roe into federal law. That is why I am endorsed by Cobalt and Color. I support a woman's constitutional right to her own reproductive healthcare choices. Every woman should have the right to dignity, respect, and privacy when it comes to her healthcare. In Congress, I will ensure that women's rights to a safe legal abortion are protected.
Thank you all. The next question is, America is known as a nation of immigrants. Do you believe that immigration makes this country stronger? Why or why not? Oh, sorry, Lauren, we begin with you.
Yes, so America is one of the most generous countries when it comes to legal immigration. We welcome 1 million legal immigrants every year. And it is amazing the people who go through that process to make this a more perfect union. One of my greatest honors as the Congresswoman for Colorado's 3rd District is to attend naturalization ceremonies. And one ceremony that I attended, there were 41 new Americans. And it was such a joy to watch them with such pride and honor hold in their hand the American flag, tears streaming down on their face. I know the hard work that they put into this, the finances that were used, the time that it spent to go through the test, but they truly counted the cost because they believe that they have what it takes. And they know that that flag is the one true universal symbol for liberty and justice for all. We need to fix some of our immigration issues. However, that starts with securing the southern border. We cannot fix any of the illegal immigration without a secure southern border first.
You, Lauren. Thank you. Adam, you're next.
Thank you. Of course, I support a strong immigration policy. It's really important. This district relies on an employment factor of immigrants helping us in the ranching and the farming and the recreation business. My grandfather, my great-grandfather won, like a lot of us on this call are as well. And so I'm fully supportive for economic reasons as well as cultural reasons as well, that we have a sane immigration policy. It's obviously important that we have safe and secure borders, but it's really, really important that we figure out how to talk about this in a more respectful way, keep kids not being separated from their parents, and making sure that we fund a good process at the border to make sure that we bring new families and new people into this country with respect and dignity that they deserve.
Thank you, Adam. Dawn, you're next.
Thank you. We absolutely have a broken immigration system. I go back in the agricultural industry in the 50s and 60s when we had the Presario program. It actually worked. I think the problem is we have a Congress from both sides that neither one want to fix the problem. We need that guest worker. We need them here. They are assets to us, but we need to bring them in legally and do it in a timely manner where they can then go through the process. It is totally broken right now and must be addressed. The red card solution that I've talked about in the past is something that I think we really need to pursue, bringing where they get their credentials in the country of origin, come here. They're already vetted. They've got the person they're going to work with, and it can happen with very little money and a lot of hard work.
Thank you, Dawn. Sol?
I am so proud of being the daughter of naturalized citizens that I always open up with that. My parents are from Colima and Michoacan, Mexico. We must fix our broken immigration system with comprehensive immigration reform. We need a better visa processing system. Our district relies on immigrant workers and seasonal employment. We should absolutely have an expedited path to citizenship for immigrants who serve in our military as well.
Thank you, Sol. Alex, will you finish this question for us?
Thank you. Sure. First of all, let's take a step back and remember what Americans want. 89% of Americans believe that immigrants strengthen our communities. Of course, I believe in ongoing investment in border security because that goes back 50 years. That didn't start with Donald Trump. That's not Lauren Boebert's idea. And I support border security both to uphold our quota-based immigration system, which works, but also to protect immigrants. It's not safe for them to be crossing a border manned by vigilantes. And one last thing I want to say is strong borders and racism are not the same thing. Safety and brutality do not go hand in hand. Stop voting for people who espouse hatred for immigrants because that buck stops with us, the voters.
Thank you, Alex. Candidates, our nation is more divided than at any time in recent history, largely fueled by vitriolic, partisan rhetoric in both the media and Washington. Congress seems to be unable to function in a bipartisan way, and voters being unable to discern controversy from conspiracy. What is the role of a person serving in Congress in helping to heal the division in the American people and promote respect and constructive dialogue? Adam, we begin with you.
Thank you for this important question. There's no doubt that our current candidate representing our district is the leader of the entertainment industry, spending her time firing people up on Twitter, firing people up on the cable news channels, and not focus on the district's needs about water, process of immigration, gun protection, inflation. We need people that are going to get there and take this job seriously and not embarrass all of us and our neighbors in the CD3. I'm going to work, my first goal when I get to Congress in January is to join the Problem Solvers Caucus. It's made up of 29 Democrats and 29 Republicans. I'll find a Republican to join me, and we'll spend our time working on issues in a serious manner, spirited conversation, and try to solve problems. If there was a get stuff done party, Sarah, I'd be in that party. But that get stuff done party is not doing it very well right now. And I think there's nothing wrong with being strong and calm. Embarrassing and loud does not mean strong.
Thank you, Adam. Dawn, you're next.
Oh, thank you. And I think that, we're not as divided as a lot of people think they are. Before I started this campaign, I truly believed that we were a very divided nation. But what I've discovered in traveling the 3rd Congressional District is you've got extremism on both sides, left and right, but the hardworking blue-collar worker that goes to work every day, they just want to get things done. And it has to be done through respect and civility and conversations and setting down and coming to a solution. Talk about what has worked, what doesn't work, expand on the things that work, and the things that don't work. Let's chart a new course. But promoting hate and division is going to lead us further down the road. And I think we just have to change the culture of Congress. That's a very simple thing. It starts one at a time.
Thank you, Dawn. Sol?
Sarah, I have been serving my community for 20 years. And for 20 years, I have actually worked with everyone. I have worked with Republicans, with Democrats, and unaffiliated voters. I am someone who is ready to work across party lines. I have already sat down with Republicans like State Senator Cleve Simpson to discuss water. That's what it's going to take. Anytime that a bill comes across my desk, I'm going to ask myself, is this going to improve the lives of the people in CD3? I'm not going to be concerned with whether there's a D or an R next to it. And so we need to elect an adult who knows how to listen. As a community organizer, I've been trained to listen, and I look forward to dialogue and working along with, everyone to make sure that this district is fully represented.
Thank you, Sol. Alex, you're up.
Thank you. First of all, I agree with Dawn. We are not as divided as social media wants us to believe. I believe strongly in centrism because, again, I'm politically homeless, and I believe both parties share fault on this. And we know that 60% of CD3 voters are moderates. Of course, that is where the majority lies. We need somebody who can push back because the parties themselves and leadership within the parties are being pushed to the extremes. We need to push back on that. I was written up by the Washington Post for calling out liberal overwokeness in the same breath that I called out alt-right conspiracies. And my polling with moderates in this district surged. Nobody on this stage speaks their mind like I do, and they all bore me half to death, which renders their centrism useless because this isn't about math. It's about having a spine. You can say civility and solution until you're blue in the face, but if nobody listens to you, it doesn't matter.
Thank you. Lauren, will you finish this question for us?
Yes. So if you go to my website, I have a Getting Things Done tab that you can see a whole list of my top 20 bipartisan appropriation amendments that I've introduced, along with press releases of the work that I've been doing on a bipartisan basis to help our district. The challenge for us to find Democrats that actually want to break from their far left agenda and get something done on a federal level is really difficult. I've yet to find a Democrat here in Congress that says, hey, I get it. Let's secure the border first, then we could talk about comprehensive immigration reform. Remember when President Trump offered Democrats $1.5 trillion in infrastructure and they wouldn't do it? Or how about when Senator Scott offered a sincere offer on police reform only to get shut down by the left? And then, of course, look at how the Democrats treat even their own party members when they don't go along with their far left policies, like the $5 trillion Build Back Better. They attacked Senators Manchin and Sinema. But I have developed strategies for dealing with this, make appropriations request and offer amendments to make bills better and so much more. So go to my website for more.
Thank you, Lauren. This next question, please discuss the two highest priority items on which you would work to represent CD3 needs if elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. sorry, Don, we'll start with you on this one.
Well, thank you. I think that's a great question. Thank you. And water is the lifeblood of Colorado, and we are looking at the 100-year anniversary of the Colorado Compact. Colorado supplies water for 18 states and 2 countries. I have a large background in dealing with water issues. I've taken on Governor Owens on the Lost Creek. We worked with Senator Cleve Simpson a great deal on renewable water, and Southeast, the LGS holdings that are working on that. I took on the Governor Polis and was able to stop one of his appointments to the Groundwater Commission. It took 8 Democrats because we only have 15 Republicans. It takes 8. I took 8, and it's the only appointment at the governor in many, many years that anybody under the dome can remember that has been able to stop an appointment by a governor. That's because I know how to build coalitions and I know what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Don. Sol?
Recognizing that climate change is here before us and it's undeniable is definitely going to be a priority, but also our economy. CD3 is struggling. I have heard it all across the district, not just in Pueblo, but in other parts of the district. Simple things like voting in favor of the budget bill and the infrastructure bill, both of which would have put real money into the district and actually created real jobs, both voted down by our Congresswoman. We need to invest in workforce development, apprenticeship training, and growing industries like healthcare and technology and renewable energy. We need someone who believes in public lands and supports the outdoor recreation economy that is so important to CD3.
Thank you, Sol. Alex, you're up.
Thank you. First, water. Water is our livelihood, and we need a bull who will renegotiate the Upper Colorado River Compact, which entitles us to less than our fair share of upper basin water. We are at 51.75% of that water, and we need to be at 60% at least. So how do we get there? The second part of my agenda, jobs. We need clean jobs, not because they're a partisan issue, not because they'll help the environment, but because they're in demand. That is how we get our families above the GOP poverty line. 15% of our families make less than the average American family. High-paying clean jobs could give them healthcare, could give them access to housing, and could raise their wages while growing Colorado's GDP and CD3's GDP, which would allow us to renegotiate that river compact to more favorable terms for our farmers and ranchers.
Thank you, Alex. Lauren?
Well, I would love to talk about some of the wonderful things that we have been able to accomplish, that I have been able to accomplish right here in Washington, D.C., as well as so many of the goals that I have when we are in the majority next Congress. So I love talking about what has been done, even in the minority. I was able to lead a successful bipartisan effort to keep the Bureau of Land Management Western headquarters in Grand Junction, securing 36 high-paying jobs with those decision makers close to the lands that they oversee. In the San Luis Valley, their weather radar data was not being integrated into the national weather system. So we fixed that. I helped secure $1.7 billion for community health centers that provide medical care in rural communities. And I helped secure so much for the U.S. Forest Service, $48 million for them. But we need to secure our southern border, get back to energy independence, to lower this inflation, fix the broken supply chains, and regain the trust of the American people once again.
Thank you, Lauren. Adam, will you finish this question for us?
Inflation. Everything's pricing are killing us. Housing pricing is killing us. Education is killing us. Drug prices we talked about before. Food on the table. We need to find someone who can get in there and actually spend some time focusing on legislation that affects the vast majority of people in this district. I have a strong business career both globally as well as a small business owner. It's the number one thing that I think we need to focus on. Second, as other people have said across the aisle, water, it's our liquid gold. There's no doubt about it. As Senator Koram talked about, we're hitting 100 years on the Colorado Compact. It's really, really important as I spend all my time, not just in the San Luis Valley and Pueblo, but also on the Western Slope and Junction and Montrose and Durango, making sure that Colorado water is protected for all of us. It's the lifeblood of our economy, and it's the lifeblood of what's being talked about at the kitchen tables around this district. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. So speaking of water, what do you suggest to help with water concerns in the 3rd Congressional District and in the state of Colorado? Farmers are being affected by drought. Our lakes and streams are diminished. What do you know about the drought issues and how it affects us all now and in the future? Sol, we begin with you.
Water is life. Let's start off by recognizing that. I will work diligently with local and state governments, with nonprofits and small businesses like family ranches and farms to be sure that federal water policies work for us here in CD3. The infrastructure bill had serious money for Western water conservation. And the bill included things like protecting the community wildlife defense grants and water conservation programs to support the Colorado River. $300 million for river drought contingency planning. And I would have absolutely voted for it.
Thank you, Sol. Alex, you're up next.
Thank you. I already alluded to the first part of this, so I won't bore you with that. We need to renegotiate the Upper Colorado River Compact. The 2007 interim guidelines are set to expire in 2025. So whoever you vote for in this election is the person who is going to be renegotiating that compact. Second, we need gray water recycling infrastructure. Very few counties in our congressional district have taken up Regulation 86, which very clearly stipulates what the appropriate uses are for gray water. And urban areas, quite frankly, are responsible for a lot of the water waste we encounter, and Regulation 86 could help a lot with that. And we need more federal funds to better capture that water and recycle it, funding which Lauren Boebert declined. And finally, we're about to be consumed by wildfires, so water conservation and deployment can and will cost Colorado lives. Any candidate who doesn't get water like the back of their hand should be disqualified from this race.
Thank you, Alex. Lauren.
Yeah, so for years, Colorado and the West have suffered from drought. I support increased water storage like the Wolf Creek Reservoir up in Moffett County, and worthwhile delivery projects that will supply clean water in dry times. I'm a strong advocate for protecting local communities' water rights and keeping their water in the 3rd District. I worked with the Douglas County Commissioners to oppose RWR's 7 billion gallon water steal that would dry up 22,667 acres in the San Luis Valley. And I also aggressively am working to remove invasive salt cedars and Russian olives. These phreatophytes are guzzling water. Salt cedars consume about 200 gallons of water per day per plant. And then, of course, in a legislative provision signed into law, I secured $10 million for the Indian Irrigation Fund to address their deferred maintenance backlog and increase their water storage. Water is absolutely our lifeblood, and our farmers and ranchers certainly know that.
Thank you, Lauren. Adam.
Thank you. I don't think there's a lot of disagreement on this water question. I think the number one question voters should be thinking about is, who do you want in the negotiating room? Negotiating on your behalf, not on a Twitter account, not on a cable television channel, but with fellow congresspeople on both sides of the aisle. We need to team up with the rural Republican representatives as well. Republicans are experiencing this 1,200-year drought as well, not just in Colorado, but in Montana and in Wyoming. This is a rural versus urban conversation, and we need to fight for rural America. And I ask you kindly and humbly to vote for someone who has the negotiating skills on day one to get in there and fight on your behalf. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. Dawn, talk to us about water.
Well, thank you. I thought for a moment that the Congresswoman had been transformed into Cleve Simpson, because Cleve Simpson is the guy, along with members of the General Assembly, that worked with Douglas County Commissioners. That statement was made at our recent debate, and it was quickly disputed by the Denver Post and a number of other. And if you're going to tell this story, you should notify the Douglas County Commissioners, because they don't seem to have the same opinion of that.
Thank you, Dawn. Candidates, what are your thoughts on repurposing some of law enforcement's budget into mental health response? Alex, we're going to begin with you.
Thank you. mental health is an important issue to me. I lost my brother to a struggle with mental health, and I think CD3 in particular really struggles with this issue, as do a lot of rural districts. Youth suicides in particular in our district are skyrocketing because kids don't have access to quality mental health care. That is not a failing that healthcare reform is equipped to solve in the near term, but they need near-term help. I think reappropriating funds from places like law enforcement, but there are also, frankly, plenty of other places where our federal government is bloated, and we could stand to reappropriate some funds to blanket CD3 and affordable broadband, to give our families access to telehealth and quality mental health care, and start putting some of that money back in families' pockets.
Thank you, Alex. Lauren.
So mental health is absolutely an issue that we have in our country, but there's a lot of issues with our culture as well. Right now, one of the main solutions that we have for mental health is putting people in prison, and that really is not the answer. But what also is not the answer is removing funding from our law enforcement officers to provide for this. I am not supportive of defunding our law enforcement officers at all. And what they've been through over the past 2 years has been absolutely devastating and detrimental. I've had so many officers come to me with tears coming out of their eyes, streaming down their faces over what's happening. Even some including the responses of having qualified immunity removed from them right in Colorado, with my opponent even voting to support that. And so not only do we have wide open borders and fentanyl coming into our communities and no qualified immunity for our police officers, but then to take funding away from mental health is not the answer.
Thank you, Lauren. Adam, you're up.
Thank you. The sad irony of Colorado is that we are the healthiest state physically in the country, but also one of the most fragile mentally. And that happens in rural America. It's growing, especially after COVID and the lockdown. I think about all those children that I was working with as a substitute teacher when they were not in school. It's really important for us to deal with this vastly growing mental health issue that's affecting our country. I don't see it as a zero-sum game between $1 from the police forces that are used for traditional services. There's no doubt that the police officers and the police forces are spending more and more time on social services and mental health, and that is important. But also we need to figure out a way to make sure that we get the best people with the best degrees and the best experience to make sure that we focus on mental health. I hear it across the board in our resort communities, as from the San Luis Valley to Cortez to Craig to Moffett County, all the way to La Junta and La Jara. We are struggling as a district and we need some help.
Thank you, Adam. Dawn, you're next.
Well, I think we need to expand the number of police officers in the district, but let's go back to what the congressman had to say about Senate Bill 217 is what it's referring to. That was a horrendous bill that came out of the House. The Senate got a hold of it. There was 27 amendments put on that bill, or it came out of the Senate. 27 amendments put on that bill, and 34 of 35 senators voted for Senate Bill 217. Look it up. It's very easy. Mental health is a huge issue. We don't have the beds that we need in CD3. We need to expand that. When someone has an issue and they have to be taken from Cortez, Colorado to Jefferson County, that is not going to help. Putting them in jail is not a solution. We need mental health care in this region right here. We're very short of professionals, mental health professionals. We need to fund that, but we don't need to take money from the police department and sheriff's offices and the state patrol to do that.
Thank you, Dawn. So will you finish up this question for us?
Absolutely. So here in Pueblo, I can tell you that we are actively working on bringing the community together and also the police department. I have actually held listening sessions in which the community comes and brings any concerns that they have with the police department. We need to look at a holistic approach, right? Police officers actually suffer from mental health themselves because they actually undergo a lot of stress and a lot of trauma. So I think that they're both equally important, and I don't want to lose police officers, whenever they're needed, and also not losing I don't want to give up either. I feel they're both important, and police officers need mental health services too. We all do.
Thank you, Sol. Candidates, what is your position on expanded use of public lands for oil and gas drilling? Alex, we'll start with you.
Thank you very much. I just want to make sure we didn't skip anybody because I was first last time as well. Are we good?
So I think it's my turn to go first. I'm fine with either.
Oh, cool. Yeah, why don't you go for it?
Sure. So with our public land use and our natural resources, it is so imperative. This is one of the main reasons that I stepped up to run for office. I live in one of the communities that has been regulated into poverty from politicians who get into office and make too many regulations that put businesses out. I've seen our schools and fire departments and roads and hospitals be built off of the revenues from these companies coming in and producing good, clean energy. But our public lands is so important. And that's why I fought to have the Bureau of Land Management headquarters located in Grand Junction, to have those people who are responsible for the lands right there on those lands that they are making decisions for. As a member of the Natural Resources Committee, I put our energy as a top priority, and Colorado's 3rd district has some of the richest natural resources available, and we could literally be exporting freedom to countries like Ukraine right now and give them energy that is 42% cleaner than Russia's. Rather than relying on OPEC and Venezuela and Iran, we can be relying on the American roughneck and producing good, clean energy right here with our public lands. I'm for multi-use of our public lands, and I'm proud to represent them.
Thank you, Lauren. I apologize to all of you on that last one. Adam, you're up.
Thanks, Sarah. We don't need to expand further use because there's only one live well being used in Mesa County right now, which is the Grand Junction area. So there are tons of viable acres that have actually been drilled or currently able to be drilled. And then there's a whole nother bucket of land that has been approved and gone through the entire regulation process that hasn't even been started on. So before we get into conversations about expanding access to more land, which I do not support, we need to focus on the land that's already been drilled upon and still has a lot of minerals and oils and energy in it, or focus on those lands that have already been permitted and work on those that go on from there. Mesa County is having a great transformation from an oil and gas industry. We're seeing a lot more recreation and uses of the beautiful natural resources we have there. And that's where we should be focusing while still respecting those that produce oil and energy for the people. Domestic oil production is very important.
Thank you, Adam. Don, you're next.
Well, I'm a full supporter of the public lands, and I think we can do a much better job of management. There's different management policies between the Forest Service and the BLM. We can do better. I think coordination, if we bring local governments, the state in to co-manage these properties with the federal government, we need a seat at the table. We need the conversation, and we know far better in the 3rd Congressional District of what our lands need rather than somebody that has never been out in there off the streets of Washington, D.C. Let's rely on local control, local experts. Farmers and ranchers are the best stewards of the land that I can think of. We have developed a natural gas industry and oil industry that is the cleanest in the world. We can continue to do that. I'm for renewables, but we need to work in a manner that is sustainable, not knee-jerk reactions.
Thank you, Don. Sol, you're next.
So we all know that our public lands need to be protected. You know, CD3 relies on recreational labor, the outdoors. It's extremely important to us. And to me, that's going to be a priority. And I want you all to know that I'm also going to focus on making sure that, you know, through the economy, we're focusing on new industries and renewable energy. And we need to elect someone who's going to actually believe that public lands need to be supported, protected. And, you know, we need to bring in more seasonal workers. That's actually what's impacting also inflation. So it all goes hand in hand.
Thank you, Sol. Alex, we're going to have you finish up this question.
Great, thank you. No, we should not be taking public lands for oil and gas consumption. We need to pivot to clean jobs and move our dependency to clean power. That will mean higher paying jobs that are built to last and won't be outdated in 10 years. I agree with Dawn. We need state and federal co-management of these lands. And finally, we need leadership who will actually protect common sense legislation once it's passed. Senate Bill 181 protected communities in Colorado from drilling outposts, yet today there's drilling just 2,000 feet from those CD3 homes, which shows our ideals are useless without reps who know how to defend them.
Sorry, thank you. We're nearly out of time. So we are going to go to closing statements. The order for the closing statements are going to be Sol, Dawn, Adam, Lauren, and Alex. Sol, we begin with you. And you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Sarah. Since I filed to run over a year and a half ago, I've been working harder than any other candidate to flip this seat. I've traveled throughout CD3 and I have met with thousands of people throughout this district. I'm running because I want to continue to serve my community. I personally know what it's like to struggle, to have to work more than one job, to have to pay for formula with a credit card, to have to rely on Planned Parenthood for treatment. I'm running because my 72-year-old mother should be able to retire with dignity, because we shouldn't have to work until our last breath. I'm running because my rights and our daughter's rights are on the line. We must elect someone who is going to fight like hell for all people. I'm running because no one is coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. I'm Sol Sandoval. Join me in saying adios to Lauren Boebert. Vote for me on June 28th. Gracias.
Okay. Sorry, I had that. I had the order wrong. Alex, you are next. For closing statement, 2 minutes.
Okay, great, thank you. It is time to push back on extremism from all sides. As a young gay man, I'm fighting for my life and rights, but this isn't about me. It's about hundreds of thousands of families who suffer under extremist leadership. Thank you for protecting those 36 high-paying jobs you mentioned, Lauren. We actually needed 200,000 of them. Look, other candidates with years of experience have been bragging on this forum about how much they have done to get us into this mess. I haven't been a part of that mess. They are part of the old generation and the old guard. What they have done didn't work. It will not work in the future. We need to start voting for a new generation of common sense change makers who don't subscribe to blind party fealty. I disagree with the way that parties are run. I disagree with extremism on all sides. I've spent a decade growing businesses and local economies. I can give CD3 the voice it deserves: strong, compelling, fearless. I will fight like hell for our water, clean jobs, affordable housing, and working class healthcare. Look, our ideals are worthless when we lose. To legislate, we must win, and to win, we must play smart. We will turn the tides towards progress, but that starts with us right here, the voters. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Go to walkerforcolorado.com to learn more about my campaign.
Thank you. Lauren, you're up next.
Thank you. I am proud to be your representative. I've hired a strong team to make sure that you have access to the resources my office can help with. My legislative record clearly demonstrates I'm a fighter for our public lands, our water, good paying jobs, while supporting our veterans, senior citizens, job creators, and our children. I've fought for American energy, healthcare, roads, and public safety. I've delivered results for our district while calling out the left for their insane policies. I check every box as a conservative: term limits, the Constitution, a balanced budget, and firing Nancy Pelosi. It all sounds great to me. All my opponents support liberal policies that are failing the country, failing our district, and failing our families. We are all paying the price for them. We don't need record gas prices to be good stewards of natural resources. We can manage our forests responsibly to help reduce wildfires and keep our air and water cleaner. We don't need to sexualize our children or have our tax dollars go towards puberty blockers when our kids are still deciding whether to be Batman or Cinderella for Halloween. Our job is to protect our children, but the reality is that gun-free zones have proven to be deadly. We need to secure our schools with the billions of unspent dollars our schools already received during the pandemic. And while we are at it, the morally correct policy is to secure the border and stop allowing liberals, drug cartels, and sex traffickers to openly break our immigration laws. I'm determined to get our country back on track. That starts by winning back the House with strong, fearless conservatives like me. Our founders were inspired by God and the opportunity that comes with freedom. Those are great motivators for me, and coffee is a really close second. I refuse to allow my four boys to grow up in a socialist nation. So I get up every day and work as hard as I can to help get our country back on track. I love being your representative, and I would be honored to have your vote. God bless you. God bless the United States of America, and thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Adam, you're up.
Thank you, Sarah, in Action 22. Thank you, Karen, and the League of Women Voters. And thanks for the hundreds of viewers that are on Facebook and Zoom watching. This is an important and respectful conversation, and these are important in times. With respect to my fellow candidates, I'm the only candidate here who can beat Representative Bobart in the fall. This is a representative that was ranked 433rd out of 435, second from dead last when it came to bipartisanship. If you look at that bottom of the list from the Lugar Center, you will see a bunch of people that are on television a lot, yelling and screaming a lot, and not getting anything done for the constituents. And that's on the left and on the right. I have the unique combination of a strong rural background, a successful business background in international as well as small business. I also have the experience of passing legislation on affordable housing, protection of water rights, and I'm going straight to the Problem Solvers Caucus to figure out how to reignite the Get Stuff Done party. It's important that you represent, the people represent the district of CD3 in a respectful manner and still fight hard for the constituents. To me, this race is not left or right, liberal or conservative, but who's going to laser focus on the rural issues that affect everyone. Republicans and Democrats are dealing with a 1,200-year drought. Republicans and Democrats in rural Colorado are dealing with expanding inflation and shrinking access to healthcare. I'm Adam Frisch. I humbly ask for your vote. God bless and be safe.
Thank you, Adam. Dawn, you're the final presenter.
Well, thank you very much. I want to thank the league and for all the candidates for being here and everybody who's on listening. I ran for this position because frankly, I sat back and I looked. I'm a success-oriented guy, and I started looking at all the successes that the current Congresswoman has, and I couldn't find them. So I pointed that out, and then they came out with a pamphlet that's saying all these things introduced. Well, the key here is passing. If you're going to do this, you got to get it passed, and you got to do that through civility, negotiations, and knowing what you're talking about. Let's talk about the Denver Broncos. They got a new quarterback. Let's just say, how's the new owner going to be if that new quarterback comes in and throws 50 pass attempts with no completions? And that's what we're dealing with the current congressman. She throws a lot of passes. She takes a lot of credit. She takes credit for things that she voted against. As an example, she just a few minutes ago talked about how she supported the veterans. But I just saw a thing last week where at a thing you said, healthcare of the veterans wasn't your problem. It is your problem. You are the representative. It is up to you to protect the people of Colorado, and voting against something that brings money back to us. You say you don't believe in earmarks. Well, maybe not. But if you don't take them, that doesn't mean the money is saved. It means it goes back to somebody else. Do you think the people in Durango that got the $11 million down there would rather it was sent back? The Montrose Courthouse got $8 million. Would they rather that was sent back? The fact is, I know I've done the walk, I've done the talk, and I can do the job. I know how to get it done. Cowboy logic rules.
Thank you, Don. Candidates, thank you so much for your spirited and informative participation. I especially appreciate all of you for the respect that you gave to each other and to this process in this evening's forum. That concludes the forum, and I'm going to hand it back to you, Karen.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. And thanks to each of the candidates for taking the time to participate in tonight's forum. A special thanks also to Martine for his translation and to league members from across the CD3 region for their support and assistance in hosting this forum, along with our co-sponsor Action 22. The League of Women Voters would like to remind those attending the forum that the views expressed this evening are those of the candidates, not of the sponsoring organizations. Some of the positions expressed here may be opinions and not facts that are agreed to by experts. So we would encourage all voters to learn more about the issues and to do their own research to get factual information. To find out more about the candidates' positions on issues, we recommend that you visit their website and also consider going to Vote 411, the informational website that is sponsored by the League of Women Voters. A recording of this forum will be available there, as well as the LWVCO website for on-demand viewing as soon as it's available. Reminder that primary election day is Tuesday, June the 28th. You should be receiving your ballot soon. In fact, mine has already been delivered. If you don't get it, I would say by the 1st of next week, please contact your county clerk. And remember, your ballot must be received by 7 p.m. on election day if it is to be counted. That concludes our forum for this evening. Thank you for attending and for being an active and engaged citizen. And also, please remember to vote.